I was 15 years old, and back in those days, you'd usually catch my friends and I at the big AMC movie theater. It's a huge theater, almost reminds me of an airport, and it was a popular hangout for kids my age on weekends. I remember going to the movies one night with friends, and a group of guys approached us. We started chatting and flirting, as you do at that age. They said they went to one of the local high schools. One of the guys I was talking to eventually asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him. I was naive and thought this was harmless. These were the days before cell phones were ubiquitous, so the number that I gave him was my home phone number. He called me maybe a day or two after that, and we talked for a bit. We had a few more phone conversations here and there before he asked me on a date. As we made plans to meet, he told me that he needed to tell me something. He admitted that he wasn't actually 16 or whatever age he said he was, and he wasn't in high school. He was 22. I fell silent, trying to think of my response. But there was more. Not only was he 22, he had been in prison and was recently released. Why? Accessory to murder for being in the car when his friend shot someone while driving by. I still remember the feeling of being frozen in fear. I calmly said that I didn't want to talk to him anymore, and to please never call me again, and hung up. After I hung up, the phone immediately started ringing. I picked it up, but before I could even say hello, he was already screaming at the top of his lungs into the phone. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but it was along the lines of,
"Don't you ever effing hang up on me."
calling me every name in the book. So I hung up again, this time leaving the phone off of the receiver. I remember being so scared to tell my parents because I didn't want them to be disappointed in me. They were always so proud of me for making good decisions. It was my fault, after all, giving some guy I just met my phone number, so I didn't say anything at first. The calls kept coming, but to keep my parents in the dark, I usually made sure I was the one answering the phone when it rang. He told me that he put my phone number into a reverse phone directory and found my address. He would call and say things like,
"I like your sister's new green car."
to make sure I knew he was watching the house. Around this time, I developed a fear of being home alone. I couldn't be alone even for a minute. So if my parents and sister were ever gone, I'd call a neighbor friend to spend time with me. One night, my parents were in bed, but my sister and I were up late watching TV. We saw a car pull into our driveway and sit there with the lights on. I couldn't see who was in it, but I knew. After that, everything stopped. I remember thinking how crazy it was that he'd done all of that and then just disappeared. A year, maybe 2 years later, I was sitting at home watching the finale of American Idol, and the phone rang. The caller ID said it was coming from a correctional facility. Confused, I answered it. It was a collect call from you-know-who. I couldn't believe it. I obviously didn't accept the call and hung up. I never heard from him again. I told my parents about this years later, and they said, "No wonder you were so scared to be alone." I should have told them at the time, because it could have escalated even further. This story mirrors a similar experience I had a year ago, one that I had just posted here. I really do wonder if there is something about me that attracts these people. One lapse in judgment can lead to situations like these. To all the creepy men I've encountered in my life, let's not meet again. Hey Scaredy Cats, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss out on any of the stories. If you have any stories that you'd like for me to read, you can find the links for submissions in the description below.